Imagine a service company whose top management gives every employee the chance to lead its most important business effort. Imagine a manufacturing concern whose commitment to participation involves customers in all stages of product development. And imagine a government organization whose focus on measurement saves millions of taxpayer dollars each year. Who are these quality leaders? What forces are driving their quality successes? And how can you put their quality principles to work for you? Well, today we're going to find out.
A number of people will ask me how I made the transition from a career in the Marine Corps to a career in the field of quality. To be honest about it, there wasn't much of a transition involved. Both the Marine Corps and quality processes are about leadership. Both depend on involving every single person in the organization and the mission of the organization, and both take measurements and use those measurements to see how things are going. In both the Marine Corps and an organization that's committed to quality, every single person in the organization knows who they are and where they fit. Results count for more than theory. Results count for more than theory. Communications is all important, and the training always has a well-understood goal. In mid-1983, when I left my 20 years in the Marine Corps with my family and moved to Worcester, Massachusetts, the Paul Revere Insurance Group had already begun planning and staging out a quality process for themselves. The Paul Revere Steering Committee had already made some very key decisions. My experience at taking grand concepts and making them into everyday procedures, plus my willingness to leap in the middle of something new, made it possible for me to become part of the team that defined and directed the quality process at Paul Revere. We didn't follow any one theoretical model at Paul Revere. In fact, it wouldn't be unfair to say we worked in a research-free environment. We just took a big dollop of common sense and experience, applied them to the situation at hand, with quality as our goal. As with any innovation calling for fundamental change, that quality process at Paul Revere, a process that is now in its 8th year and is still going strong, as we'll see in a few minutes, was not easy to do, nor will it be easy for you. To move, to lead a company towards a goal of becoming known as a quality organization is going to require a great deal of commitment, a great deal of intellectual and emotional involvement on the part of everybody in the organization. We'll talk about that today. We'll talk about the roles that leadership, participation, and measurement play in the development of a quality process. And we'll show you 3 nationally recognized organizations whose commitment to quality, whose processes have allowed them to overcome the stumbling blocks and to reap the rewards of a quality process. And we'll show you how you too can take these same principles, adapt them to your organization, and begin to write your own success story. But why do it? It's hard. It's hard to do. You do it because of the proven positive impact on organizations of virtually all sizes and types. In June of 1991, the General Accounting Office published a report based on the results that 20 of the first 22 finalists for the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award had with their quality processes. They found that in every single indicator across the board, results were positive. Everything from increased market share to decreased customer complaints to increased employee morale, and every single category it was positive. In fact, the evidence was so overwhelming that when they released the report, the GAO announced they intended to begin their own quality process. In the private world, we do quality because it makes money. It makes money in 2 ways. If we do things right the first time, every time, it reduces our costs. If we build, earn, maintain a reputation for quality, our sales will go up. In point of fact, you can probably even charge more. In other words, we open our profit margin up from both sides. We reduce the cost, we increase the income. In addition to these benefits, in addition to the fact that it makes money, there are other things that go right. As Dr. Deming points out, it creates and preserves jobs. It strengthens the organization and makes it more possible for us to react to unexpected crises, unexpected customers, unexpected competition. It raises the morale, it lowers the turnover. It just simply makes it a better place to work for and a better place to buy from. In addition to that, there is the profit thing. There is the ethics thing. This is, after all, what you promised your customers you would do. You promised them you would provide them with something that worked the first time. Implicitly or explicitly, that was your promise. quality enables you to keep that promise. Despite all these benefits, the truth of the matter is quality is not easy, it is not immediate, and it is not free. It is, however, possible. It can happen more quickly than you've been told, and it's the best possible investment for your corporate dollars. I wish there were a one-size-fits-all quality process I could describe to you so you can go out and just do it, but it doesn't work like that. Every one of our organizations is unique. We have unique customers, we have unique employees, we have unique cultures, we have unique problems. In their details, every quality process will be unique. There are, however, basic principles that we can follow, basic principles we can learn from each other. We can adopt these principles and then adapt the techniques to fit our particular organization. These principles, by the way, will fall into three major categories: leadership, participation, and measurement. But before we get into those, let me start with a definition or two, because we need to agree on what the definition of the word quality is. We need to agree on what the benefits are if we succeed and what the penalties are if we fail. Only then will success be possible. Lots of definitions for quality floating around, but most of the definitions for quality that we see or read are firmly rooted in manufacturing and do not fit well into the service world. They don't even fit well into the service segment of the manufacturing company. We need a definition that will fit in both. I suggest this to you, that quality is composed of two elements. There is quality in fact, and there is quality in perception, and we need them both for success. Quality in fact. Quality in fact is reached or achieved. You can claim it when you do exactly what you intend to do, when you meet your own specifications, when you conform to the requirements of management. You have quality in fact, but it's not enough by itself. There is also quality in perception. Quality in perception is reached or achieved. You can claim it when someone else believes that the service or product that you offer is going to do or be what they want it to do or be. It's going to meet their expectations. One other word to define: customer. We use the word a lot. We often restrict the meaning to being just those people, those organizations out there who give us money for our services and products. Those are important customers. We can't lose track of them, but then that's not all. Because if we restrict our definition to just them, many of us are no longer involved, because many of us never actually look a money-paying customer square in the eye. We deal with each other. We need a definition that fits both cases. I suggest this to you, that a customer is anyone to whom you, and I mean you personally, your unit, your organization, anyone to whom you provide service, product, or information. Anyone. With that definition, we all have customers because we all pass something on to somebody. And we can turn to that somebody and say, you actually use this stuff? You see, a quality process at its core is nothing more than a continuous, proactive effort to determine our customers' expectations, compare those to our specifications, and see if there's a match. If there's not, you must do something. You either change your specifications to match the expectations, or you may have to educate the expectations. You want to get to a point where there are no surprises. At that point, you can claim to have quality. This will require a change in your communications. This will require a change in your culture, a change in your behavior, a change in the way you treat people inside and outside your organization. And that's not going to be easy. None of this stuff is easy. That's too bad. But you can only succeed if you engage every member of the organization in this effort. That engagement will take leadership, leadership that results in participation, participation that includes the use of measurement. I would include that, extend that to mean also your customer and your vendor. But for right now, let's look inside the organization, because that's where you have to begin. Let me give you a very quick history of the three major attempts at quality that we've seen in America over the last several decades. And we'll spend the rest of our time focusing on the third one, which I believe is the one that will actually work for all of us today. But quality efforts in America began right after World War II, mostly in manufacturing. The president or CEO would walk out and he would look at the faces of his assembled employees and say, I wonder who I can make responsible for this quality thing. It would name specific people, give them a little bit of training, and station them next to the door to the loading dock and say to them, Stop the bad stuff. Well, if that's their job to stop the bad stuff, the rest of us are now in an adversarial relationship trying to get things past them. It doesn't work. Inspecting in quality has never worked. It never worked in manufacturing. It works even less well in service. Perhaps the best single comment on quality control was made by the American philosopher Lily Tomlin when she mused one day, quality, if it's so good, why do we keep trying to control it? It's a fair question. Late 70s, early 80s, we realized this wasn't working, so American managers began to look around. Since it was the Japanese who were leading the assault in the American marketplace, we thought it best to try and imitate them. But the efforts were clumsy. We would now walk out in front of all our employees and say, who here would like to volunteer to do this quality thing? We'd get about 10%. Of course, 90% said no, thank you. These were called quality circles. There were some tremendous successes with quality circles at first, but they tended to die out very quickly because the structure simply didn't call for the kind of sustained support and involvement from top management that's necessary. What quality circles did for America was it proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the American worker, given half a chance, can do miraculous things. Because that's what quality circles gave them, just about half a chance. Now, those first two efforts, quality circles and quality control, the common point of those two is that you began by identifying specific people who would be allowed to contribute to the betterment of the organization. You're asking the wrong question. You must start with a very different question. The third approach comes at it from the other side. When you look out at your employees, your fellow workers, the question you should ask is, who can we afford to leave out? Who do we hope never gets any better? You see, with that question, the answer is very easy. You can't leave anybody out. You must involve everybody. Quite simply, it is not total quality. You cannot use the phrase total quality with any integrity unless every single person on the payroll is a player, is an active, enrolled player in the continuous improvement of the organization. That's a philosophical point that must be thought through prior to launching a quality effort. We'll assume you've thought that through. Let's talk about getting this thing going. There are, as I said, three primary principles: leadership, participation, and measurement. Let's begin with leadership. One of the most obvious manifestations of leadership was what is commonly called top management commitment. Top management commitment must be active, it must be obvious, it must be informed. Managers at all levels must be prepared to invest their ego, their time, their efforts, their resources, and the resources of the organization. As one of the signs of this commitment, of this leadership, managers must be prepared to improve what they do. They must be prepared to improve their contribution to the organization. This is not simply one more way to whip the troops into shape. The quality process involves everybody improving their contribution. A quick litmus test to check the health of your own quality process: look around and ask yourself, do the decisions made by managers in the name of quality change what they personally do, or do they always seem to change what somebody else has to do? If the latter, then you're falling short. To do this, to publicly improve what you do, to do this, to share the power that comes to make decisions, is going to require on the part of managers a great deal of self-confidence. But I think that's only right. Only self-confident people can lead. Insecure people are limited to being managers. And they'll stay that way until they figure out the difference and begin learning. You see, a manager cares that a job gets done. A leader cares that a job gets done, and he or she cares about the people who do the job. That's the difference. Management is a subset of leadership as surely as productivity is a subset of quality. That's also why most MBA schools teach management and productivity. They're teaching the easy pieces. They're teaching the parts with linear formulas and nice, easy projections. Leadership can be learned. Don't let yourself fall in the trap of saying, well, yeah, she's a good leader. She's a born leader. I couldn't do that. Nonsense. You can learn this. The fact that there are great leaders does not prevent you from being a good leader. Some folks are born with extra. That's true with any trait. don't let that stop you from learning the basic rules, the basic techniques of leadership. Another manifestation of leadership, of top management commitment, is the commitment of resources and time to training. Anyone can learn leadership. Anyone can learn the basics of participation. Anybody can learn the basics of measurement, but they must be taught. The organization must provide that training. Training will be the biggest single investment that the quality process makes at its outset. The training will fall into several categories. One of them is simply technical training. You'd have to continue and increase the technical training in your organization. It's not fair to ask somebody to do something and not give them the training and the tools they need to carry out the job. OJT, on-the-job training, is a cowardly, inefficient way to train. Another category of training is the idea of quality-specific training. At the outset, you will need to train 10 to 15% of your people in how to run a meeting in a participative manner, how to solve problems, and how to use your particular quality process. The rest of the organization, 85, 90%, should receive a couple of hours of orientation training to get them going. As your quality process matures and evolves, you will find yourself adding all kinds of courses under the umbrella of quality, courses ranging from leadership to phone courtesy to advanced statistical process control. Also included under the idea of leadership is the involvement of the top managers in recognition, gratitude, and celebration. Leaders say thank you. Your people have done good things. They've contributed to the organization. They've put their ego on the line. They deserve to be thanked. Besides, if they hear you say thank you, they'll do more of it. This is, after all, a business proposal. Complicating things a bit is the fact that different folks hear things different ways. What one person gets excited about, the next person doesn't. If, for instance, I gave these two gentlemen each a plaque because of the marvelous thing they'd just done, he might go home and spend the evening polishing his plaque, preparing to put it above the fireplace. He might go home and put his in the fireplace. There is nothing wrong with that. Different folks hear thank you different ways. It is your responsibility to build a recognition system that extends thank you 3 or 4 different ways to each deserving person to make sure they hear it. Within a quality process, most of the recognition and gratitude should be aimed at teams. It is teamwork, after all, that is the underpinning of continuous improvement. But you should not forget individual thank yous as well. One of the vehicles used at Paul Revere is a quality coin. On the back of this coin it says, in recognition of a job well done, good for 1 meal in the Paul Revere cafeteria. One caution, before you start something like this, please make sure that a meal in your cafeteria is considered to be a reward. These are for personal one-on-one thank yous. That's all they're for. The top managers give these out. The president of the company has defined that every top manager will give out 5 of these a month. You must find 5 people who did something right and say thank you to them. By having a specific rule, it helps everybody do what they agree they should do. It helps them include everybody in the process. Impact of those coins, they've been giving them out now for about 6 years at Paul Revere. They only get about 20% of them back to the cafeteria. And it's a good cafeteria. People won't give them up. They can tell you exactly where they got each one they have, when they got it, why, and from whom. Now, in 1988, the first year of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, the Paul Revere Insurance Group was one of 2 service companies to receive a site visit. When they were compiling their application, it became clear to everybody who read that application that the Paul Revere top management had been deeply personally involved in this quality process from the outset. In fact, it turned out that the president of the company in his top few reports had conducted 1,500 award ceremonies in the first 4 years. This was in addition to the personal one-on-one thank yous that are now a natural part of the Paul Revere culture. The Paul Revere culture has changed dramatically since the introduction of the quality as value process about 8 years ago. What has occurred there, some say, is a revolution.
I've had a chance to walk around and look at all the displays, and the thing that occurs to me is that everyone that participated is really a winner.
Once a year, Paul Revere employees gather in the company cafeteria for QualiFest, an exhibition that reviews,
So Tom, tell me a little bit about what you did to improve customer service.
recognizes,
We, for instance, have done a lot of what's called soft dollar savings. We've done things that we think can save examiners' times as well as improve our relations with our customers, which might...
and rewards.
The winning team is satisfaction guaranteed on customer service.
Outstanding contributions to quality.
I feel that our quality display won because we did show a definite customer service improvement. One of the goals that we worked on this quality year was the problem of undeliverable mail. We have found 66% accuracy rate in locating people that previously we could not find before.
At Paul Revere, such dedication to quality was once considered radical.
What we're trying to do at Paul Revere and have been doing is to really change our culture, to change our employees' attitudes and feelings about who we are and who our customers are. And in order to do that, they have to have some leadership. They have to have an image at the top. I kind of feel as though it's more than simply something written. The leader or the CEO has to show a verbal, has to show a visual, and really has to show a visceral commitment to quality.
Over the past 8 years, Chuck Soul's commitment has helped transform this nearly century-old firm from the bottom up.
Good morning, group customer service. Jill speaking. May I help you?
One of the biggest challenges for a manager and for the company is to make everybody in the company feel a part of this quality process, feel a part of the importance of the service they're providing and how it affects our ultimate customer, our policyholder. One of the real difficulties, I believe, in our business, in the insurance business, is that we don't have a tangible product. We don't roll an engine out of the rear door of the building. We sell a promise to pay some benefits in the future. The objective then, underlying all we're trying to accomplish in the quality process, is to find a way to help our employees understand our business.
To promote that understanding, key departments were reorganized and layers of management stripped away. Improving customer service, along with cutting costs and streamlining procedures, became the responsibility of each and every employee.
Okay, guys, is there anyone missing?
And quality teams became the authority.
All right.
One of the things we did that's different, I feel, than other quality processes or programs, both here and in other countries, is that we required that all of our employees be involved.
Still, 100% participation was not automatic.
Today, we really want to focus on brainstorming, picking some ideas, writing them down. Remember what brainstorming is about. This is your opportunity now. We're going to work together as a team. We really need to come up with some great ideas here.
Middle managers in particular did not see Paul Revere's new democracy as their opportunity.
You remember now, you're sitting at your desk and you're saying, oh, there's got to be a better way to do it. Something that takes you an awful lot of time and it's really frustrating.
Instead, they felt pressure from above and below.
You're empowering your workers to come up with ideas and implement ideas in a way you never have before. And at the same time, this first-line manager has senior management, like myself, saying to them, get the work out. And there are frequently some conflicts between getting the work out and your group of workers wanting to work on implementing a quality idea.
Leadership reconciled the conflicts by rewriting corporate strategy to put customer needs first.
So from the top of the organization is clearly coming a message, not just verbally and not just in a quality process, but in our business plans that speaks to quality and service.
At Paul Revere, leaders are not born, but made in quality team leader training sessions.
Now, how many of you at this time of the year are sort of unmotivated? You know, you're looking at your goals saying, oh, why are we still doing this? Or why do we ever choose to do these goals? What we wanted to do by designing this class was to help you, give you some skills to re-motivate your team. What we want is for the people on your team to feel charged up again. What I'd like you to do is to pair up and solve this perception problem. I want you to look beyond the obvious.
Anyone, regardless of rank, can learn to lead.
Team leadership is much like management, only you do not actually have the formal authority that you would have if you were a manager in the company. From the time that you very first start out, you grow in terms of being able to set agendas, pursue goals, organize groups.
Very good. I'm impressed. Now, you've all been able to see a little bit beyond, and that's one of the creative traits that we're looking for.
Other company programs teach frontline people to adapt the principles of quality to fit any position.
How many more?
The Paul Revere workers in the simulated widget factory have one goal: to satisfy their customers.
You have 5 in your backlog, and we're still waiting for those new ones.
I need another 6, please.
Backlog is 5, so we need 11 altogether. If you can get them quickly, we'll take whatever you have ready.
All right.
Well, the quality has improved. They're getting better.
Experience gleaned from the game can be applied to real-life business. Since the quality as value process began, Paul Revere has implemented 33,000 employee-generated ideas, resulting in some $18 million in savings. And his turnover rate is just half the industry average.
Now, after talking about those tangible things, I think a leader in a quality process, senior management, has to appreciate the less tangible or the intangible elements. If you go around the building today and ask any of our employees what the word customer means to them, they'll give you a different answer today than they would have 8 years ago. The exciting thing is, and I think we continue to relearn this, is that it's the worker on the job, doing the job, that very often has the best ideas about how to improve quality for the customer. Hi, folks. How you doing?
Good. How you
Good?
Good. Here we are again at another award, right? And I understand you folks got a gold last year, and I've been looking over your quality goals for this year. So, although we're not going to give you a test, maybe you can just fill me in a little of the detail that's not here. We've broadened their horizons. We've helped them understand the field customer, the policyholder customer, our sales customer, and we've helped them understand that the person in the desk next to them may also be their customer. Well, you folks are doing a super job, and it shows even with a small team. And you know, this is smaller than our average team. What can be done if you all put your minds to it? So I congratulate you, and of course we have some certificates.
Leadership's informal involvement is also important.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Chuck.
How you doing?
Oh, not too bad.
Good to see you.
Yeah. I think I know why you're here, huh?
Yeah, I understand you got a little bit of a hardware problem.
Yeah.
People say I'm obsessed with quality, and I am. And I think that level of commitment is really important to get the maximum out of the process. I've come to understand that kind of personal contact, that kind of interest, and asking people about quality and service, and in that way showing your support out in the workplace is terribly important. And I think most CEOs, including myself, would not have understood or appreciated the critical value of that.
Okay, we're going to take some time now for questions and answers. Questions both from the remote sites and from here in the studio audience. We're going to begin with a question here in the studio, but you folks out there at the remote sites, please pick up the phone and give us a call. We'll do our best to answer your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Pat, when you're talking about leadership, how far down the corporate ladder should you go? Leadership at what level?
Leadership at every level. And it sounds like a cheap answer at first, but I really mean that. Leadership can be learned at every single level of the organization. We need to involve, we need to train people to be leaders. If you only have 2 people in a room, one of them has got to be a leader. One of them has got to be the person who has the responsibility and thus the authority to act and to move towards some improvement. So leadership is at every level. This is not something that is a sole province of the folks at the hierarchical top of the organization. Any other questions? Do we have any questions from Michigan? I have a question from Michigan, I guess, which is we're all supposed to be able to hear. Go ahead, Michigan. Michigan, are you there? We've lost a whole state. Well, since while we're finding Michigan, anybody else here, please come over to the mic. Here we go. Have a gentleman who's kind enough to go over and ask a question while we wait for the entire. Yes, sir.
Yes. You mentioned quality of fact and quality perceptions. Our company is dealing very strongly with the quality of fact, and now we're reaching out. We're an OEM manufacturer, and we're sending out customer questionnaires, and we're not getting any response back. How do you respond? How do you pull those people in?
My suggestion would be, rather than just send them mail, go out and get them and invite them in. You're going to have to convince them that you're serious. You're going to convince them that this time you really mean it, because these customers you're dealing with, much like the employees in many companies, have heard this before. And they've been asked before, and they've sent in answers and never heard about it again. If you're serious, you have to prove it to them. And one way would be to take them out and bring them into your company, give them presentations, talk to them, prove it to them. Okay? From the studio. Yes, sir.
Hi, Pat. Bob Skinner, Seco Insurance Company. A question I have, being a ball player all my life, and talking quality here, is how do you teach first the word teamwork and what that word means so that people get along in the department or amongst themselves? Because they use the word teamwork, but they don't understand what the word means. Because a lot of them haven't ever played on teams or been in a group where they have to do something.
Okay. Part of it is you approach people, and this is true with a lot of aspects, you approach them on both an intellectual and an emotional level, because this whole quality thing combines both. On the intellectual level, you have to convince them that it is to their benefit, their personal benefit, and to the benefit of the organization to work as a team. There are enough examples available in your own organization of teams that have been successful, and point to them and point out the fact that this person by himself or herself couldn't have done this. So you appeal to them, if you will, intellectually, and you also appeal to them emotionally. Some folks aren't going to buy it right off. Some folks are going to drag along. This is one reason why we talk about non-voluntary participation in a quality team. If you put everybody in a quality team, eventually they will start opening their mouth, but you put them on the inside. You pick them up there and make it real obvious to them that this is to their benefit to be involved in this. Yes, sir.
What if you're asked by senior management to implement a quality program, you give them the litmus test that you spoke about, and they fail?
With senior management's lagging, well, you have two options there. One is to polish up your resume. The better option is to approach senior management the same way I just suggested you approach your lower employees, intellectually and emotionally. On the intellectual level, you approach senior management with the fact that this stuff makes an incredible amount of money. Motorola, for instance, has pointed out that last year their quality process is worth $500 million to them last year alone. So you approach them on an intellectual level, the emotional will come. But you may have to, again, drag them around, give them things to read. You have to treat them as you want them to treat you, like a thinking adult. Give them the credit for being a thinking adult and just keep pushing information at them. One more from the studio. Yes, ma'am.
You said that on-the-job training is a cowardly, inefficient way to train. What's a courageous way to train?
Courageous way to train is to actually put the money into a training budget. Tom Peters' rule of thumb is if your company is doing well, double your training budget. If you're not doing well, quadruple it. You have to keep your training in place. You have to keep it current. And you must that investment. That investment is partially as an indicator to everybody else that you're serious. You want them to know. Okay? Now from Michigan. Okay, from Michigan, please. Go ahead, Michigan. Go, Michigan.
Do if you have a person who wants to get off the quality team.
I'm sorry, Michigan. Could you start again, please?
What do you do if you have a person who wants to get off the quality team?
I'm taken aback by the question because I can't imagine that happening. But let's say it did. Someone wants to get off a quality team. My suspicion is that you don't have an environment where being on a quality team is a natural, expected thing. If you only have 10% of your organization on these quality teams, then if they're being treated as outsiders, as adversaries, I can see where they'd want to get off, and you can't do a whole lot about it. What you need to do is create an environment in which being a member of a quality organization is a natural, desired thing. If somebody wants to get off, if your organization allows your folks to be on or off, I'd let them off for now. Scranton, Pennsylvania. Go, Scranton.
Yes. How can quality management be applied in very small businesses, mom and pop or 5 to 10 people retailers?
No matter what the size of the organization, the principles apply of trying to determine your customers' expectations, comparing your specifications, and see if there's a match. Even in a mom and pop, there your communication should be easier. You only have a few folks. They should be able to talk to each other. Although even there, you may want to structure the conversations occasionally. There, you may be closer to your customers. Make sure you don't take these things for granted, though. What happens too often in small organizations is we take for granted the fact, well, we're all here in the same room. We must be talking to each other. You might not be. Stop and think about it consciously work through the specific steps, the principles consciously. I'm sorry, from where? Toledo, Ohio, please. Go ahead.
My name's Ford Caulfield Industries, Toledo, Ohio. Quality, service, price, or cost. Isn't there always a trade-off? Some people want a Lincoln, a high-quality automobile. Some people want a Ford. Also, it costs money to make things within 1/10 of a thousandth of an inch, when plus or minus 1/1000th of an inch will do just as well. So isn't it always a trade-off? I think quality is very important, and it probably ought to be number one. But let's not forget, America's noted for its creativity, new products, such as the PC computers, the computer in general. If a copy machine, as an example, could be built for $100, even though the quality would not be as good as the latest Xerox, wouldn't be a big market for a copy machine at $100, even though the quality wouldn't be as good?
The point is, going back to the definition of quality, is expectations versus specifications. You said that it costs more to make it to 1/10,000th of an inch when 1/1000th inch is good enough. If that's good enough, that will meet the expectations. Stop there. The point is, you don't overdo this thing. That's why you stay close to your customer. What do you, the customer, want? I'll meet those expectations. You don't need to overdo and spend extra money, but if you are meeting the expectations, then the proof is, the cases that come in are that no, there is no trade. That in fact, if you do things better, you can charge more for it. There literally is no trade between these two things. They're not, the idea of service and the idea of cost and the idea of quality are not conflicting ideas. There is no trade-off. The track record that's out there is that Americans tend to believe that point because we've taught each other that. We tend to believe we have to pay extra for quality. The ironic part is, if you're really good, if you really do things right the first time, have zero waste of both materials and time and money, it costs you less to do things, and you can charge more for it because we're not used to getting good things cheap. One last question from Belleville, Illinois. Yes, please.
Yes. Initially, quality improvement seems to be focusing around quality action teams. And my question is, on the long term for quality continuous improvement, is there something more to it than just quality action teams? Is there something that we can do daily to integrate quality into the way we do business?
The answer is yes, there are things you can do daily, but let me point that my definition of quality teams is the daily activity. But quality teams are not all there is. Quality teams tend to attack or address the question, are we doing things right? You must also have, as part of your structure, looking at, are you doing the right things? That will probably be a whole different approach using, say, value analysis or value engineering. You need to look at both questions. You may also need to have the occasional task force to handle a short-term emergency. So quality action teams are not all there is, but I would only hesitate the one thing you said. I would say that quality action teams are, in fact, an everyday activity. They should be part of who you are. They should be part of where the organization is going from here. Thank you very much for the questions. We'll now go on. Leadership is one secret of Paul Revere's success. Another secret is 100% employee participation with a structure. It's important to realize there must be a structure. You cannot just walk out one day and announce, all you people are responsible for quality, and think you're on your way. There must be a recognizable, understandable structure in place. This structure will require some planning, it will require some investment, and it's not only a means by which every employee knows how they can take part in the process, it is also an outward sign of the commitment of the organization. It's an outward sign of their investment. It's a promise of stability. It's a promise that this process will still be here tomorrow. Whatever structure you choose, it must involve everybody from the top to the bottom. The CEO must be involved. The person you hired yesterday to work in a mailroom must be involved in this process. In addition, the structure that you carve out for yourself must include specific time for quality. There must be time set aside to discuss the idea of quality. You cannot simply say, oh, we'll talk about quality at our staff meeting, because despite your good intentions, you won't do it. You'll mean to, but then some today type emergency will come up, and quality, which is mostly about tomorrow, we put aside. There must be time specifically for quality. In addition, the structure you build must not only encourage but practically demand small ideas. There must be the small ideas, the small continuous ideas. Now, nowadays you hear lots of things about breakthrough ideas and other such dandy terms. Those are all good, but the heart and soul of a quality process is the continuous stream of improvements, the small ideas. The breakthrough ideas, the big ones, will come along, but they'll come along more frequently and more easily if the atmosphere is one of continuous change. Incidentally, I do prefer the idea of quality teams with non-voluntary participation, but I will concede that there are other ways to do this. Toyota, for instance, in Japan, gets 61 ideas per person per year. And they've got a suggestion box. Think of that, one idea per person per week. And they implement 94% of those 2.6 million ideas each year. The structure must fit you. You'll notice as we look at the three segments today that the three companies we're featuring have very distinct and different structures for their quality processes. They share the same principles, but the way they're played out in their organizations is different. The same thing will be true with you. You will find your own unique way to play this thing out. The lubricant that makes a structure the size that I'm talking about possible is what's called empowerment. Now, I know that empowerment has been a much misused word in the last couple of years, but let me give you a quick definition. Empowerment means simply authority equal to responsibility. That's all. No more, but no less. If I'm on the line for it, if I'm going to get blamed for it, I get to change it. That brings us to the problem of the middle managers. Middle managers take a lot of heat these days. They're the ones that get blamed if things don't go well. As Chuck Soule said, they're under a lot of pressure. But let's look at it from their point of view. When they came to work 10 or 15 years, when many of you came to work 10 or 15 years ago, you were pretty excited about this. And you had some neat ideas. You went to your supervisor, your middle manager, and you said, I got some ideas so we can make this place better. What was the response you got? Do you remember? Yeah, right, rookie. Sure you do. Maybe I didn't explain this to you real well, but we do things around here the way we do things around here because it is the way we do things around here. But you seem like a bright young person. Why don't you take notes at home, keep a notebook, and someday when you get my job, you can do it your way. Right now, get back to work. You did. You're a good person. You kept notes. You got promoted yesterday. You came to work today with your 3 notebooks worth of notes, and you sat down ready to do it your way. Looked over the in-basket, and there's your very first memo from the president. What's it say? Welcome to the quality process. Don't forget to ask your employees for the good ideas. What happened to my turn? You want an honest answer? You missed your turn. You don't get to be a small-time dictator anymore, but the role that's being offered to you is a better role. It's a better way to be. You get to be a cheerleader and a coach and a mentor and a teacher and a leader, maybe even a friend. It's a better role, but you must think that through, and the organization should help you with some training. Participation will require communications. How else can you be expected to know what's going on if you don't ask? Here's a phrase you can use to perhaps improve your own communications. Listen down. All our life we've been taught to listen up. Why? That's what knowledge is. We listen up and proclaim down. No, you need to listen down. Those folks know things that you don't know, just as you know things that your boss doesn't know. A quality process should be forcing information to the top. You can improve that flow to the top. You can speed it by listening down. Let's look at a company now that's one of the best, one of the leading examples of participation and listening in America. The company is IBM plant at Rochester, Minnesota. In 1990, they won a Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. They're now not only one of the best examples of quality in America, they're one of the best teachers of quality in America. At IBM Rochester, where the focus is on something called market-driven quality, quality and participation begin and end with the customer.
Let me start with IBM at Rochester, a company that proves that quality, coupled with employee training and education, is simply good business. In fact, IBM Rochester spends five times the national average on education and training. And just one reason why IBM Rochester is globally competitive.
IBM Chairman John Akers accepted the 1990 Baldrige Award for 8,100 people in Rochester, Minnesota who felt it was theirs. Every employee owns quality at IBM Rochester. As a former general manager, now IBM U.S. Vice President for Market-Driven Quality Assessment, explains.
Each employee, not just those in quality departments, but everyone in development, manufacturing, and service areas, is focused on determining what the customer needs and how we can make and deliver total solutions to satisfy those needs. Everyone understands how he or she contributes, individually and through teamwork, to making the customer the final arbiter, and in this way, to IBM Rochester's success.
Since 1988, when IBM Rochester launched the AS400 midsize computer, customer participation has driven that success.
The things that we're looking for from you and your perspectives is to help us position the product, get some functional and usability studies out of it. So your comments are very important to us as we roll the product out and deliver it to the marketplace.
Product development in the 1990s is becoming increasingly complex. We're asked to do much more than we've ever done before, but yet the customers want that product much sooner. They want new products, better products, and they want them quick. And we can't do that by just working harder anymore.
I like F16, but I also want a position list capability.
Okay.
I'd also like to be able to pull things up in the order that they were last created, sort of like the date.
Okay, so an alternate sequencing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Or just ones that I had created.
All right.
And not everybody else's. But I'll use search for now.
I had saved my pop-up window, and I've been working for 15 minutes, and I didn't remember.
You couldn't remember what
I couldn't remember what I named it.
What if we put a name or on the confirmation window a name?
That would be perfect. By being invited up to Rochester to look at products that aren't yet available in the marketplace, to be part of their development, to influence the direction that they're going in, to identify perhaps weaknesses. What it's doing is it does two things. It improves the product that IBM's delivering, but as a business partner, it helps CTI be better positioned to understand where IBM is going, so we can be prepared to respond to our customers and be prepared to provide them with a product that matches IBM's products.
If you see the corporation is concerned about what they are doing instead of actually getting numbers out, they're concerned about the final product and what the customer receives, it kind of gives you a better feeling about who you're working for, and it makes you work harder for them also.
Inside the Rochester factory, design data translates automatically into assembly line information. Precise, predictable processes enable every employee to meet and exceed customer expectations again and again. Converting customer needs into product specifications is everyone's job. To simulate customer environments, employees conduct a battery of tests. To eliminate defects, prevent rework, and shorten product cycle times for the customer, employees participate on quality improvement teams.
Somebody who's got some creative thinking could help us out in the front end there with loading cards and stuff, because our riveted cards are still getting scratched from being stacked connectors on top of cards.
The components of customer satisfaction are built into every employee performance plan. Total employee involvement sharpens IBM's customer focus. In fact, Rochester employees see the customer viewpoint as their own.
Quality to me is just like if I go downtown and want to buy something. I want it done right the first time. I don't want to have to take it back to the store. And we don't send anything out the door here unless it's done right. If it's not, we don't ship it.
When I say, yes, I have completed testing on that, if a problem comes back in, I take it personally. I say, hey, where did I go wrong? What did I mess up on? Where's the hole in my test bucket? And I plug that hole up. It's a personal thing to me that the customer is getting good quality.
Managing quality is something we try not to do. Within IBM, we very, very much try to let the people do the work themselves. We make it clear what we expect, but do not attempt to interfere with their efforts.
Well, they've kind of opened up the doors for individuals like me anybody who's involved in the manufacturing process to approach higher management and give their opinions on what should be done or what can be done.
With employee morale and product reliability up, and employee turnover and product development time down, quality is good business for IBM and its customers.
Quality is a strategic competitive weapon and perhaps the ultimate competitive advantage. We know that. But while we have a good lead, the game's not over, and it never will be.
Okay, we're back again for questions and answers, again from both the remote sites and studio. Last time we started in the studio, this time we'll start with the remotes from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Yes, please, Green Bay.
With Toyota's implementation of one idea per employee per week, this results in over 2 million changes per year, I believe you said. What do we do to develop a culture which embraces change rather than resisting change?
First of all, I resist the implication of how we have to change to be like the Japanese. We have a specific culture in America which has got tremendous strengths. What we need to do is simply work with that culture. And I don't think that culture is necessarily resistant to change. Our culture has always prized the cowboy. It's always prized the maverick, who's always been pounding at the boundaries as it is. We simply have to find ways to harness that to bring that into a team in a productive way. So it's perfectly possible to do. We can do it. American companies have done it. But we need to do it in an American culture, in an American setting, and play off our own strengths. Yes, sir, from the studio here.
Lou Jeffrey on the Raytheon Company. What do you think the most effective role in promoting quality enhancement in the United States is that can be played by the American Society for Quality Control and its approximately 100,000 members?
Oh, okay. The American Society for Quality Control, for those who aren't familiar with it, has been around for about 45 years. It's one of the two major organizations in America that are membership organizations with quality, the other being the Association for Quality and Participation, headquartered in Cincinnati. ASQC is headquartered in Milwaukee. ASQC is currently playing a very important role in helping to promote and provide copies of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. Their involvement in the Baldrige is probably the best thing they've done for quality and spreading the message throughout America. They're a good force to turn to. They are primarily manufacturing oriented. That is their primary membership base. But they're beginning to reach out and become more and more adapted to the fact that there are service organizations in America as well. So both the ASQC and the AQP, highly recommended groups, both of them. Question from Wyoming. Yes, please, Wyoming.
Yes, in many business settings, yearly increases in pay are based on individual performance. How can both managers and employees handle the perceived contradiction between promoting teamwork and cooperation versus individual performance?
Again, I'm afraid I don't see that much of a conflict because your contribution to a team allows you to shine. It's one of the things that you promote this whole thing on is the fact that this is a showcase for the individuals as well as the team. What happens, what we've seen happen, for instance, at the Paul Revere Insurance Group, the folks on the teams who do particularly well tend to get promoted faster. The teams that do particularly well have a higher percentage of folks getting promoted. This really is something, one of those rare cases where everybody wins. Literally, the team wins, the individuals win. From the studio, please.
Pat, what if someone doesn't want to get on board? How do you get them to participate?
Okay. I use the word non-voluntary. I think mandatory has got an emotional overtone and it's not a good word to use. By non-voluntary, I mean this. Congratulations, you're all involved in the quality process. That does not mean I expect that each one of you will be wildly enthusiastic the first day. But for instance, if these 7 people here in the front row, if I made them a quality team, at the very first day there may be a couple of recalcitrants who don't much like this. Over a period of time, as the team begins to function and begins to improve things and things get better, each one will begin to figure out, hey, this is a good deal. I should be a part of this. But see, if at the outset we define them on the outside, they've got to beg their way in. We don't do that well. But if they're defined on the inside, all I have to say is, oh, by the way, I've got an idea. So the point is to set it up so it's friendly to them at the outset. You assume at the outset you've got adults. You assume at the outset that these are thinking people who, given a chance, will do great things, and you build the structure that way. El Segundo, California, please.
Yes. During the Paul Revere video, it was stated that they were stripping away middle management, and middle management does not see team empowerment as their opportunity. If this is true, and I heard it correctly, how do we encourage or motivate our middle managers to build upon the teaming environment?
Okay. Chuck Soule did say they're stripping away layers of management, not specifically middle, but you're right, layers of management go away, but the middle managers, they pointed out, have some trouble going in, but I believe at Paul Revere, in fact I know at Paul Revere, that they have come to grips with that idea. The middle managers have made this shift from being small-time dictators of the past into being coaches and resources and teachers and leaders. So it's a matter of recognizing the problem is there, working with it, again, proving to these middle managers and to all the managers that the new role is a better one. The new role is one that is more satisfying and more fun, and in which they can actually have a greater impact than they used to have, because folks listen to them now. Folks, one more from California here. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Just a comment. For the person who was not getting the response for their questionnaires, at Hughes EDSG, the prototype development lab sent out questionnaires. They did not ask for a mail back. 3 of the upper management people went out and personally interviewed the clientele and received more than 80% response.
Thank you very much. That's an idea from the earlier question about how do you get response from customers who don't respond. You need to go out there and eyeball, talk to them, and having the senior managers do it is a marvelous alternative because that helps to prove the commitment. It helps to prove the fact that we're really serious this time. This is not just somebody's wild idea if they picked it from a seminar. This is part of who we are. Yes, ma'am.
Lynn Orlowitz, Orion Research, Boston. My question is fairly similar to the previous correspondent. What are some effective ways for both manufacturing and non-manufacturing organizations to obtain customer inputs on products and services? And to what extent should feedback to the customers be given after these inputs come through?
And the first question, I think, as you mentioned, we've pretty much danced around that a bit. The idea that you have to go out and talk to folks and engage them personally. Written surveys give you just a bare scratch of it. You're going to have to go out and invite people in if you possibly can. Bring them here, have them meet your people. The answer to the second part of this was, I'm sorry, what was the second part again?
To what extent should feedback to the customer be given?
Feedback to the customer, I think, should be given as much as you humanly possibly can. For one thing, if you feed back to me, the chances of my answering you next time go much higher. One of the reasons to do that is if I complain about something and you feed back to me that out of 10,000 people, only one person found that complaint, I then know who the oddball is. It's me. Okay? But if I complain and you never get back to me, my assumption is that I'm one of 10,000 people who complained and we scared the heck out of you. So you need to give me as much feedback as you can, keep me engaged in this thing. I'll work with you. I'll tell you how to get more money from me, but you're going to have to ask. Kentucky, please.
Yes, this is Ted Wood from Hopkinsville Community College calling with a question. Do you recommend or endorse the idea of stock options, like where the employee buys one share and the company matches that with another share as an enticement technique to maybe get people involved and working towards the team efforts and obviously towards quality?
First, I've got to quibble with some phrasing. The idea of an enticement technique. That I don't like the phrasing. I wouldn't like the attitude that would go with that, I'm afraid, or at least as implied. It's the same thing. I don't like the word incentive. We're not trying to buy anybody's loyalty. We're not trying to trick them into doing something. We do build a program of recognition, gratitude, and celebration by which we say thank you to people for their contribution to the organization that they're part of. Okay, that aside, the idea of employee stock options, that's one of the techniques. Some companies, some very successful companies have done that. I've read, various. I think Avis is one of the ones that has one of the biggest employee stock option companies. You hear them brag about it on television all the time. This is an employee-owned company. This is an option that some people have worked with. I know that the American Productivity and Quality Center in Houston is one of the folks who has a lot of data on this. So yeah, it is an option. It is not a necessary option. If you look at, but you need to find ways to say thank you. And please think of them as a thank you, not as some kind of incentive. I'm sorry, Wisconsin? Wisconsin,
yes,
please.
This is Gordon Van Hera from Kenosha, Wisconsin. How do you get your people involved in quality when the piece rate production pay scale and then the quality checks that the operators perform is going to result in a lower pay?
In that case, you literally have serious structural problems in your organization. Your top management has got to stop and take a look at this thing. Your top management will have to buy in first to the fact that quality makes money. And they're going to have to make sure they set it up so they're not penalizing people to make more money for the owners. And something like that, you're right in seeing that that's a serious problem and it must be addressed first. That's why I say you can't just announce tomorrow you got a quality process. Your top management must make some serious decisions about the structure of the company, about the mission of the company, and where you're going from here. New Jersey, please. Question from New Jersey? Go ahead, please. Okay. New Jersey, are you there, please? Do we have? Well, one from the audience? Ah, thank you, ma'am. Just 1 second here while we get over to our microphone. It's over here, ma'am.
My question is related to multi-cultures and the Multicultural International Organization. And I'm interested to know what ideas you have about aligning the organization as one firm internationally to adjust these cultural differences.
Okay. The idea is that, as I mentioned, each quality process will be unique, but you share principles. If you have an organization that is literally made up of components in various countries where there are some cultural differences, that should not be a problem so long as you lay down a set of a basic structure that is flexible enough to be adjusted a bit. I mean, the basic principles will be there. The idea of leadership, participation, measurement, and some specific mechanics, those should be common. But don't expect everybody to be the same to the last detail, because you are going to have some differences, perhaps even from location to location within the states, much less between the states and some other countries. There's nothing wrong with that. Recognize that, revel in it, take advantage of it. ISO standards, for instance, those you're going to hit when you're in Europe, that's a concern that is growing in the U.S. Take advantage of, respond to the environment that's around you. Make this part of who you are, wherever you are. One last question from Norfolk, Virginia.
Yes, I have a question. You had cautioned against using incentives when you discuss thanking, recognizing, or celebrating. If you were using an employee suggestion program, would you not use any rewards with it then?
Oh yes, I use rewards. A lot of it is in the attitude, in all honesty. A lot of it is in the presentation. At Paul Revere, at many companies, there are things given, material things, all kinds of things given, but much of it is the attitude. We reward people, we say thank you to people, we extend our gratitude to them. We don't try to buy their loyalty. If I can buy your loyalty for 20 bucks, somebody else can buy it for 25. I don't want to buy you, I want to say thank you to you. That brings us to the end of this questions and answers. We'll have one more chance for questions after the next tape segment. Right now, we go back to the presentation. Okay, we've seen outstanding examples of 2 of the 3 necessary components of a quality process: leadership and participation. The third is measurement. Folks, you're going to have to take some measurements. You're going to have to learn to use measurements. Too often, measurements end up being an end rather than a means. Too often we use measurement as a weapon or as a religion, rather than simply as a way to track progress and as a source of ideas. Now, there are a variety of tools available to us that come under the heading of Statistical Process Control, or SPC. Don't be scared off by that. Don't be steamrolled by the statistics types. SPC is nothing more than arithmetic for better business. Or as another friend of mine calls it, if you have to get to taking a square root, you've gone too far. Don't measure things just because you can. When you take unused, inappropriate measurements, you waste time and resources, and you damage the morale of the people who are gathering the unused numbers. Now, besides SPC, besides statistical process control, the other major category of tools in the measurement area are surveys. You're going to have to ask questions. How else are you going to know what anybody wants if you don't ask them? You need to survey your external paying customers. You need to survey your internal customers as well. Your surveys can range from things as simple as, you use this stuff? How to scientifically structure, neatly focus, and run focus groups. And there's all kinds of ways to do this, but you need to get this information flow coming into you. And remember, never ask a question unless you're prepared to deal with the wrong answer, unless you're prepared to react when somebody says something that you didn't expect. Now, one organization that really knows how to take measurements, how to use them, is located at the Marine Corps Air Station in Cherry Point, North Carolina. It's a Naval Aviation Depot. It's one of 6 such organizations in the nation, but it's the only one run by Marines. To be honest about it, there aren't that many Marines. About 12 Marines out of a workforce of 3,100 people whose job is to fix airplanes. These folks won the 1988 Presidential Productivity and Quality Prototype Award, the first one. These are folks who, like Paul Revere and IBM Rochester, do all 3 things well. They do leadership, they do participation, they do measurement, but they do measurement particularly well. They're particularly good at this. They use the measurements to continuously improve what they do. They also use the measurements to feed into a gain-sharing system. They use these measurements to contribute to help define a paycheck that goes into the pockets of every employee virtually every quarter.
1986, the skies over North Carolina. Demands for the latest aircraft technology confront dwindling defense dollars. The survival of the Cherry Point Naval Aviation Depot is at stake. With the competition, both public and private, fast approaching, Cherry Point's commanding officer orders his counterattack.
I saw an opportunity. I saw the chance, by looking at the literature, for a savings of 25 to 40% by focusing on quality. I was determined to lead this change because I was convinced that total quality management would be the key to our success. It was the right thing to do for the taxpayer, and it would make us a world-class organization in a very few years.
Initially, Colonel Gartman's quality offensive encountered stiff resistance. Fear of the unknown and business as usual from a bureaucracy that began building and repairing aircraft in the closing years of the Second World War. But gradually, TQM principles like employee involvement and participative management won the hearts of the depot's largely civilian workforce, and measurement won their minds.
We believe you cannot improve what you're not measuring. You'll have no idea of what your process is doing, and you'll have no idea how much variation's in your process until you start measuring it. And if you make changes, you'll have no idea of how they're going to affect the process.
Using quantitative methods like statistical process control, workers learn to find the root cause of a problem and correct it. Very quickly, aircraft are being fixed faster, and less than 1% of the repairs are being rejected.
Statistical process control also allows us to fix something for the long term. Unlike we used to do, where we'd send a group in, we'd fight the fire, we'd fix it, and we'd leave, only to find the problem come back in 5 or 6 months. With statistical process control, you continue to monitor and see that the fix takes and stays there.
Through measurement, Cherry Point has transformed the art of aircraft maintenance into a science. As proof, the depot solved an aviation mystery. Why were the mechanical wing slats of the A-4 attack airplane failing?
A4s, for the last 15, 20 years, the slats that are aerodynamically actuated have been the #1 non-mission capable degrader in the fleet.
In flight, A4 slats could actuate at the wrong time, making high-speed maneuvers difficult and putting the plane in jeopardy.
So what we started to do was we started to ask questions. What are the maintenance actions that we're performing that cause that slat to come out when we want it to come out? So one of the things we started to do is we started to take some data. Instead of changing 10 or 15 variables at one time, we went ahead and started taking measurements.
Cherry Point engineers discovered that changing one measurement, the trailing edge clearance, critically affects slat performance.
So instead of 4 hours of taking the slat off and re-rigging it according to what the old timers would recommend we do, we did a 15-minute adjustment. We took the trailing edge of the left slat and lowered it 3/64 of an inch and retorqued.
Next time, the slats worked perfectly. The number of A4 slat test flights per plane dropped from 19 to 2. Overall, the depot's quality mission, dedicated to serving the fleet on time and at the least cost, has saved $159 million government dollars. At Cherry Point, some of these returns are pocketed. The depot regularly divides half its productivity gains equally amongst the employees.
It's an award system that makes everyone part of the process. It's the right thing to do. It shares the benefits of the added work that we ask our people for, thinking and changing processes, with the people that are making those inputs.
So far successful, with half the depot's operations engaged, Cherry Point's quality campaign continues.
The quality journey is absolutely never over. We have just begun to realize how much we can do. We will continue to improve. It is our goal to become a world-class organization, and if we stick to the path and continue as we are, we'll get there.
Okay, we're back again for our third and last round of questions and answers. This time we'll start in the studio. Yes, sir.
Pat, do you recommend gain sharing? Is it effective as an incentive?
Gain sharing, as you've seen it, it works with these folks. It falls into the area of one of the options. I've seen it work, and I've seen it where it dried up and it didn't work. A lot of it comes down to the attitude of the top management involved, why it's being done. If it is a matter of trying to finally buy the loyalty of some recalcitrant herd, and that's the feeling involved, it's not going to work. If it's a matter of extending gratitude, acknowledging the commitment, acknowledging the contribution, in that mode, yes, it will work. So it's one of the tools that is an option. It's one of the things to take a look at. Let's hang on. Worcester, Massachusetts, please.
Yes, my question is, can a small part of a larger organization, such as a particular department, effectively implement its own quality program without the formal support of upper management?
It's tough. To do it within an organization is tough. Is it worth doing? I think so, but it depends on how big your organization is and how much resources you can get your hands on, because, for instance, organizing the training is difficult, funding the recognition program is difficult. There are some real barriers to this, but do I think it's worth trying? Yes, but be warned going in, it's a son of a gun. Studio, please. Yes, sir.
Keith Graves from Russell, Breyer and Company. When you have an employer who wants to get the ideas from his employees, and they're of the old school where the suggestion box offered them anonymity, how do you approach that? Some of the older employees usually have the best ideas. How do you get that out? How can you offer that anonymity in today's circles?
I wouldn't offer anonymity. I want people to take credit. I want them to get the thank yous. I want them to be applauded out loud for the neat things they've done. They get some degree of anonymity if they're working within a team, because the team becomes the focus of the thank yous. But unless the habit of the organization has been that they get slapped around, that if they don't take another idea next week, if there's some habit, some culture in the organization that makes it dangerous to have your name attached to an idea, that'll have to be dealt with, addressed, and put away before you get any further. But in my case, I'm sorry, I wouldn't see any reason for anonymity at all. I want to be part of that. I want to be thanked for what I do. I want to be a part of this thing.
But
yes,
some of those people have the best ideas. How do you
they
get
do.
that?
So you're going to have to talk to them. You have to court them. Some of these folks have been around for a long time. They've seen an awful lot of HMIs, that's hot management ideas, come and go. You're going to have to convince them that this time you're serious. You can only do that by saying it again and again and again, and demonstrating it by the folks who do come forward with ideas and applauding them like mad. The idea will get across. It'll take a little bit longer depending on how serious you've been in the past, depending on how serious they think you are when you start.
Thank you.
A question from Michigan, please.
Yes, this question comes from Badenoch Community College. Our question, while many progressive organizations are eagerly accepting TQM and its various modern management practices and systems, there are thousands of others that seem to willfully ignore the trend and could care less. Based on your experience, what would you say are the secret ingredients and outward indicators of the open and enthusiastic management teams as opposed to those that are unreceptive?
The real secret is they're aware of the world around them. I mean, I hate to be that blunt about it, but you're absolutely correct. There are a minority of organizations that have figured this out and are getting busy with the quality process and are taking advantage of this. There's this great herd out there that hasn't started yet. I don't know why they don't, because it is so blindingly obvious, and most of them sit there and they say, we don't have to do this, all the way to bankruptcy court. But all you can do with those folks, if you happen to work for an organization like that, is start feeding information to top management, feed them articles, feed them books, talk to them, make it so blindingly obvious to them that they're missing the boat that they can't possibly turn away from it. But you're right in that there's an awful lot of folks out there that haven't caught on yet, and I have a lot of trouble understanding that myself. Yes, ma'am.
Pat, in my experience, many employees are afraid of measurement. They're afraid of the negative feedback they're going to get, and particularly about their own performance. And they'd rather forego any of the positives so they don't have to deal with the negative. How do you get them past that hurdle?
Again, you're going to have to demonstrate to them that you're not going to punish them with the numbers. That's exactly what's happened many times. We've used measurement as a weapon. Ah, caught you! You have to use the measurement as a source of ideas, as a way to track progress. If the measurements show you something is wrong, that's not the occasion for punishment, that's the occasion for improvement. You ask the folks who helped you take the numbers, these aren't good enough, this is wrong, what can you possibly do about it? Get them involved. Are they going to believe you the first time? Probably not. You're going to have to work at it and work at it and work at it. We've abused our workers for so long in America, we can't expect them to get back on board tomorrow. We're going to have to work at courting them back in. They'll come back in fairly quickly, but we're going to have to say please. Athens, Ohio, please.
Yes, our question here at Ohio University is how can quality management be applied in a research organization?
The same principles apply, which at first is kind of a cheap answer, but let's think it through for a second. It applies because you are, again, dealing with customers. There are folks who have asked you to provide this research. They've given you a budget. The same principles are going to apply. And in fact, the belt I have on is from the Swedish Defense Research Institute in Sweden. And they have begun a quality process there. They have applied these principles. They've written papers about it. But, where else do you start with a research institute? They wrote a paper about it. But they literally written a paper detailing how they can apply the principles of quality to the research world. So yes, it does fit. Yes, it's a bit of a reach, but it is part of the whole area of academia is beginning to tussle with this idea of how do we fit this quality thing into the world of academia. Research being one of the subsets. It does fit. I urge you to give it a try. Just stick with the very simple principles and work with them. Yes, sir, here in the studio.
Hi, Pat. Glenn Roth from Polla Corporation here in Boston. I was wondering, what would you recommend now for the consummate quality professional who has strictly been involved in quality all of their lives? Now they're faced with a culture shock. They're going to have to talk more like and act more like business people to communicate with business people. What do you think we can do about this?
Yeah, the quality professionals, the folks who've been out there beating these drums for years, who fell mostly into the area of quality control, quality assurance, who often were in an adversarial relationship, they have got to now be brought inside the organization and become teachers and resources. That's a change of role for them. It's a personal, for some folks, it's a personal crisis. They like being the adversaries. We've got to bring them inside. They're no longer the cops. They're now the resources. They are so valuable, you don't dare lose them. So you, as top management, must work with these folks carefully and give them the coaching, give them the teaching they need to learn how to be an effective communicator, because they know things about your organization that nobody else knows. You can't afford to lose these people. You're going to have to work with them and bring them inside. Yes, sir, here.
Why in some companies did top management take so long to turn around and recognize quality and SPC on their manufacturing processes?
Because they weren't very clever. To be a little more specific about that, a lot of them were slow because, heck, they were making enough money. They were making enough. There wasn't any competition in their particular niche. I worked gave a presentation one time to a service organization. We got to the point where I made the statement, you're going to have to trust your employees. And the response by the president of the company was, we can't trust these people. And his top managers all said that, says, they didn't have any competition. They were in a unique little niche with no competition. They didn't have to do this. They were making enough money. It's the minute that that nasty old thing called competition rears its ugly little face, suddenly you get religion. The trick is to get at this stuff first. Don't wait. Get out in front now. One quick for instance here. Let's say that 20 years ago, GM, Ford, and Chrysler had taken Toyota seriously. If they'd taken them seriously and really cleaned up their act and really gotten with this quality thing 20 years ago, you wouldn't see any Japanese cars in America. We opened the door for them by ignoring the idea of competition. You can't do that in any niche. You've got to get out in front now, stay out in front, make competition impossible. That's how you make money at this stuff. Yes, sir. Wisconsin? Question from Wisconsin?
Moraine Park Technical College. I have two questions. Early in the program,
You stated that to achieve your quality goals, it would not be easy, they would not be immediate, they would not be free. Some of us may have a little trouble with quality is not free, as opposed to Philip Crosby's book, Quality is Free, and some of us are disciples. Second question, would you have a few moments to address the importance of the internal customer and the overall quality effort within the company?
Okay, first on the question of quality is free. Phil Crosby never meant it was free. What he meant was it was relatively free, that it was a whale of an investment, but the book title, Quality is a Whale of an Investment, doesn't fit as well as Quality is Free. It's a great title. The implication is absolutely true. You get back far more than you invest in quality. On the idea of the internal customer, tremendously important. You've got to work with those folks because, after all, for most of us, that's who we work with. And internal customers deserve all the respect and attention that external customers get. You have to ask them continuously, what are your expectations? You have to tell them what your specifications are, and then work out the problem if there is one. Internal customers, tremendous importance. You've got to deal with those folks. You've got to give them the respect and all the attention that you give to external customers. Yes, sir, here in the studio.
Bill Colquitt, KM Foods, Chelsea, Mass. How do you suggest starting a quality process in your company? Do you hire a consultant? Do you read a book? Do you go to the library?
Starting a quality process. First of all, the role of consultants. Do you ever see the comic Stephen Wright, by chance? I have teenage sons, so I see these comics on various TV shows. Stephen Wright, one of his best lines is, everything is within walking distance if you have the time. Okay? The same thing with a quality process. You can do this all by yourself if you have the time. All a consultant does for you is save you time. That's what you buy from a consultant, is your own time, because they can get you there a little bit faster. The trick is to make sure you pick one who is going to be an advisor to you. What you don't want to do is hire somebody in who's going to do it for you, because then they own the process. And when they leave, it goes with them. You need an advisor who can kibitz and then get the heck out of there. You bring a consultant in, wring them dry, and throw them out is the way you treat consultants, okay? The idea of books, yes, you read books. The books I would recommend, you start with Out of the Crisis by Dr. W. Edwards Deming. I like Tom Peters' books, particularly In Search of Excellence and Thriving on Chaos. I would recommend Kaizen. It's spelled K-A-I-Z-E-N. The author is Masaki Imai, Japanese gentleman. Kaizen means the philosophy of continuous improvement. I recommend my book, of course. If there's any gift-giving procedures, any gift-giving occasions coming up, I recommend the heck out of my book. There's a new book just out. It was written up in the USA Today last Friday. The book title is A Better Idea, written by Donald Peterson and John Hillcook. Donald Peterson was the president and CEO of Ford during their tremendous resurgence to the early and mid-'80s. That book, at least based on the excerpt in USA Today, looks like it'll be a marvelous book, because it stresses the idea that management must listen, listen, listen. But you've got to share power, push power down the chain. So yes, all of the above, basically. Read a lot, think about it. The biggest thing you have to remember, though, is don't spend all your time thinking about it. I'm a fan of the great philosophers, and one of the philosophers I'd like to quote to you right now is Bo Jackson. Just do it. Leap into this thing and have at it. Get it basically structured, get a good structure, and then get at it. Change it as you go. Everything changes. The quality process at Paul Revere right now is a far, far different thing to look at than it was 8 years ago. The principles are still the same, but it began changing the first week it was in place. After all, a quality process calls on you to improve, to change, to grow. It has to do that itself as well. So yes, do the reading, hire a consultant if you want to cut the time down, bring in some outside training if you have to, but get at it. Question from Sacramento. Sacramento, please.
Audience, especially in personnel, where we don't produce widgets, we provide a service to our people. My question is, how do I motivate employees and managers to provide quality service when it's such an intangible product?
In personnel, of course, quality, I would argue that it's not that intangible. You see faces all the time. Personnel has such a tremendous impact on the morale of an organization that you do have something very tangible. You have the smiles, you have the response, you have the smooth running of the entire organization, you have the fact that you're dealing with people. The motivation for your folks is, again, if you're trying to do it just by yourself, it's going to be tougher. If you're part of the entire organization that's trying a quality process, then that motivation becomes easier because they can see themselves as a contributing member of an entire organization. They can take part in the rewards, the recognition, the gratitude that's going to the entire organization. But I would talk to them, explain to them what's going on, explain their role, have them deal with their customers as customers, have the customers come into them in a non-crisis situation and talk about it. Have them go out and talk to their customers and engage them. One of the examples, again, from Paul Revere that comes to mind, on the idea of talking with folks, they had, in their dealings with their field offices, they decided at one point they would call their field offices even when there wasn't a problem. They acknowledged the fact it was going to cost them more, but they decided we'll bite the bullet on the increased phone costs and we'll go ahead and make the calls and see how things are going out there. You know what happened? Their phone bills went down. Reason? If you call somebody in advance and say, how's it going? They tell you about this little problem that's just beginning. And you solve it then, rather than waiting 3 months and having 14 panicky phone calls to deal with. So reach out with your folks, talk to them, make sure your folks know they're valued professionals in the role of the organization. This should work very well. One last question, sir, in the studio.
Frank Bono, TV, Falcon Group TV producers. I'm reminded of in every manufacturing operation, there's always a small group of people who have their own independent quality control program. I can recall a company manufacturing circuit breakers. On final assembly, these craftsmen would take and drill a little larger hole in the piece because it worked a little better. They take a linkage mechanism over on the bench and tap it in a very judicious place, just the right amount of force. That would make it all work better. And one day this guy retired and circuit breakers didn't work anymore. So how do you get these people to report back what they're doing?
My bet is that way back at the beginning, that gentleman tried to tell somebody that. He tried real hard 2 or 3 times 10, 15 years ago, and nobody listened to him. So he just started doing it himself. After a while, he forgot he was doing it. And he retired. The corporate memory went with him. You're absolutely right. How you deal with that? You establish a quality process that involves every single person, and you work real hard at convincing people that you believe they are contributing, thinking adults, and you ask them specifically, what do you know? What do you do? Tell us about it. Make it part of who we all are. But you're absolutely right. Those kind of folks are so key. These people are doing all these neat things, trying their darndest to help the organization every way they can, every way they've been allowed to. What you're doing is opening the doors for them and giving them more ways to do it. Not only that, but you say thank you to them finally. Because nobody ever said thank you before. They just did the job best they could. Thank you very much. Okay. Leadership, participation, measurement. The concepts sound easy at first glance, in part because they're so obvious. It is in the implementation that life gets difficult. Doing this, implementing a quality process that takes advantage of the skills of every single person on the payroll, is a difficult thing to do. It requires a commitment to the idea of quality by the organization as a whole, with all the individuals who together make up that organization. And I would like to issue one warning. If you start this, once you are well and truly on your way towards a quality process, you turn back at your own peril. Just imagine, if you would, for a second, if for some unfathomable reason, somebody reached out, snatched out Chuck Soul from the Paul Revere Insurance Group and put in his place, say, a dozen or so authoritarian managers who said, enough this quality crap, let's get back to work. We're going to do it the old way. I would be willing to bet you that within 4 months, 50% of the employees at Paul Revere would walk. They'd be out of there. Once you are treated as a valued, contributing, thinking adult, you never want to go back to the days of work, don't think. But it is hard. There is risk. We go back to the question of why do it. Let me offer you motivation on 3 levels. The idea being that I recognize that just as folks here thank you in different ways, folks are motivated by different things. So I want to offer you some thoughts at both the national, the corporate, and the personal level. At the national level, America needs leaders. We need folks to get out front and show us how to do this stuff. The manufacturing model for quality as practiced in America is obviously badly flawed. Obvious because of all the manufacturing companies that have gone under in the last couple of decades. Now, foreign competition is taking aim at our service sector. We need leaders. We need folks to show us how to do this because the challenge is serious. How serious is it? Well, let me read you a small quote here. The speaker is Mr. Konosuke Matsushita, the founder of, executive advisor for Matsushita Electric Industrial Company. They're a small firm. They own Panasonic and a few other places like that. This is a man who knows the American workforce. He knows the American economy. Speaking to an American audience, he said, "We will win and you will lose. You firmly believe that sound management means executives on one side and workers on the other. On one side, men who think. On the other side, men who can only work. For you, management is the art of smoothly transferring the executive's ideas to the workers' hands. We are aware that business has become terribly complex. Survival is very uncertain in an environment filled with risk, the unexpected, and competition. Therefore, a company must have the commitment of the minds of all of its employees to survive. For us, management is the entire workforce intellectual commitment without self-imposed functional or class barriers. Mr. Matsushita has done a tremendous favor to American management. He's identified the problem. It's up to us now to solve it. We can use quality processes to change the way we work as a nation. Thomas Jefferson once said that every generation needs a revolution. I offer you the idea that for our generation, quality should be that revolution. There has been progress. There's no question about that. The Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award has been a giant step in the right direction, not just for the handful of winners, but for the thousands of companies who use that application as a self-assessment tool to check on the progress and see how it's going. Whole new professions are coming into the quality area. Healthcare in the last couple of years has come into quality with both feet. Academia is beginning to take a serious look at this thing. It's beginning to spread. There is progress. But if your motivation is to lead the nation or simply to be the tops in your own industry, there is one question that we need to deal with that stops many corporations. And the question is, I haven't got the time. I mean, it's a good idea, might even be a great idea, but we haven't got the time right now. Tell you what, next year, when we got everything under control, and we can do it right, then we'll do this quality thing. No, real world doesn't go away. Let me give you an example of a real world, real-time problem. Remember about 2.5 years ago, there was a United Airlines flight took off from Hawaii, and a cargo door blew off. 9 people were killed initially, but they got the plane back. They landed it safely. The captain of that plane was a Captain David Cronin. He was interviewed at great length. He repeatedly credited his command leadership training. He said he benefited several times during the emergency from the training, which stresses that captains delegate cockpit duties, that other crew members question their captain's actions and offer suggestions. In the old days, Mr. Cronin said, the other crew members didn't speak or do a thing until the captain told them to. Those days are now over. He went on to say that several times during a 24-minute emergency, he took time to discuss things with the other crew members. A real-world problem is being in an airplane filled with a few hundred people headed for the water. That's real world, that's real time, and during that emergency, the man held quality meetings. I will grant you they were short meetings. But in crisis, he turned to his fellow employees, his subordinates, and said, what do you think, folks? What do we do now? There was not a single decision made in that cockpit that day that was one person's decision from front to back. Every idea, every decision was emerging in the minds of 2 or more people. There is time for quality if you want to survive. Back at the beginning of, on the personal level, almost forgot the personal level, gracious. On the personal level, it's more fun. It's more fun to do this. It's more exciting. It gives you control over 1/3 of your waking hours. It's more satisfying to be treated as an adult. It's more satisfying to treat others that way, to trust them, to not have to worry about who's going to stab you in the back next. It makes for a better life. Back at the beginning of World War II, American Army paratroopers were suffering from what can, I think, fairly be called a quality problem. Some of the parachutes weren't opening. Hey, not many. I mean, if you kept the charts and kept the numbers, you would find out that the number of parachutes that was failing was well within variance. The problem was trying to explain the concept of variance to somebody who's hurtling past you. Solution to the problem? They went to the parachute packers and they said, congratulations, you're all involved in the quality process. From now on, every now and again, you get to jump. with the last one you packed. Let me see, you packed this one, didn't you? Let's go jump. The percentage of correctly packed parachutes immediately went to 100%. Stayed there the whole war. As I said back at the beginning, if we can agree on the definition of the word quality, if we can agree on the benefits if we succeed, and the penalties if we fail, quality is possible. This is within our grasp. We can do this.